everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today's awesome guest is Tracy Pleschourt, the founder of Selfmade You and the host of Secrets of the Selfmade podcast. She is a life coach that helps people with their business as well as their weight loss and health. I love her approach to weight loss because she really dives deep into thoughts and emotions and feelings, which really, if you think about it, are the underlying issues of why people tend to overeat, overdrink, and live sedentary lifestyles. So I really loved our conversation. If she lived near me, we would definitely be friends. She coaches people all across the country, both men and women. And she did the transformational work on herself even, so she knows it works. And anyways, I know you're going to love this show. Let's go and say hello to Tracy. Hey everyone, welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Pleschourt, health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you encouragement or an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode. Please also join our awesome Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and I'm looking forward to see you on the inside of that group and hope you enjoy today's show. Hey everyone, this is Tracy, and I have a special announcement. In order for me to help more women age stronger, I have created a 90-day one-on-one coaching program. And the goal here is to teach women over 50 how to age stronger while burning fat and boosting energy without going hungry or living in the gym. If you'd like more information, please hit me up at tracy@highenergygirl.com or friend me on Facebook and send me a message. I have a goal of transforming 1,000 women in the next year, and I hope you are one of them. Hey, Tracy, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so adorable, I must say. Where are you from?
I'm from Minnesota. You can probably hear how I'm drying out my O's a little bit.
It is so cute.
Yeah, we are experiencing, what are we, 101 degrees today, which I think they said in the last 40 years we've only had these temps 6 to 7 times. So yeah, we're a bit hot because, you know, we're used to like Siberia type weather where it takes forever to get warm here. And when it hits with vengeance. And so, yeah, we are sweating bullets today.
Oh, yeah, it's warmer there than it's going to be here today. I'm in California. So yeah. I've been to Minnesota once. I used to work at Patterson Dental. Yeah. And it was like snowy and they volunteered me to be the driver. I'm like, I have never in my life driven in snow. I said, I pass. Thank you. So Trace, for the listeners that don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm a life coach. And that is as the last 3-4 years. Prior to that, I was an advertising executive. So it's not the typical, career path that you see most advertising professionals take. But I had the good fortune of having an ability to manipulate the culture that our talent attracted at the advertising agency. I also had a touch point on the clients, and we had phenomenal brands to work on. And so I knew that my passion really lied within, mentoring other people, developing cultures, really kind of defining brands as purpose-driven brands, especially our professional services as an advertiser, which is so unique. You don't normally see that in professional services, but I had a strong passion for that. And so I decided that I would kind of do the unthinkable. Thank God I had a family that was hugely supportive and understanding. And so I exited that industry and entered into life coaching, where I knew I would be able to have a bigger touch point. I would really, my days would be surrounded with impacting other people. And I coach on all topics, wealth to wellness. I'm very much guided by the challenges that I've had in my own life and developed programming around that. And I own a company called Selfmade You, and we have programming on how to lose weight and go on to achieve things that you never even thought possible. And so a lot of people enter through the virtual Selfmade You doors wanting to lose weight, and then they go on to tell the story that they healed relationships, increased income, achieved statuses at, their places of employment that they never thought that they would achieve. So I am truly blessed because I'm actually doing the work that, I kind of dreamt of, and it's just been a phenomenal ride. And that's thanks to a lot of people like you for having me on your podcast and being able to share my story. So yeah, that's the life I'm living today.
So you said something that caught my ear, that you used your story to help other people with their challenges or your experience or whatever, conquering your own stuff. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, definitely. So I had my own weight struggles, my own weight loss journey, more times than I would want to admit throughout my short 50 years of life. And I used food and I used alcohol to numb a lot of feelings like stress and overwhelm and frustration while I was, in corporate America, while I was raising a family, while I was, trying to develop relationships that, I surrounded myself with. And I never knew why I couldn't not only lose the weight, but every so often, a squirrel gets a nut and you do lose the weight, but trying to keep it off would elude me. And so I couldn't ever put my finger on the pulse of why that was. And until I became a life coach and I realized, oh, I'm buffering all of my emotions. I'm trying to use food as a way to numb my emotions. Hence, I gain weight or I can't keep the weight off. That always eluded me. And now I know. And ironically, when I first left advertising, I started helping women. I coached women on how to start purpose-driven businesses. At the exact same time, I had yet again pursued weight loss, and people started to see me, for a lack of a better word, whittle away through social media. It was kind of my own, it was my branding technique. It was my personal brand, but they saw me getting smaller, and I started having more people come to me and wanting to get coached on how do they lose weight, just like I was doing. And all I was doing, and I don't mean to make it sound easy, but it actually is easy. It just eluded me for all of these years, is I started to manage my thinking and my emotions in a much different way. Instead of what I think most people can relate to is following some script of actions that was handed to me or said, go count points or go count macros or, all of those things that we think equates to losing weight. That was never it for me. For me, I had to learn how to manage my thoughts and my emotions. And so that was a challenge that I had struggled with for pretty much my entire life. I have a great testament to what it looks like to start a purpose-driven business and then to grow a purpose-driven business. So I tend to coach a lot of professional women who feel like they're stifled by any sort of circumstance, a pandemic or marketing or whatever the thoughts are around their current circumstances. And ultimately, Tracy, that's what it comes back to. It always comes back to what are you thinking and how does that thinking make you feel? And how do you show up from that feeling? Like, what does that have you doing? What does that have you creating? What's the experience or the result that you create for yourself through the thinking that you unintentionally most often do? And so those are two really big challenges that I personally overcame, that I coach a lot on. I would say the third, a close third, that was probably, as big of a challenge, would be over drinking. I leaned heavily into, the wine o'clock hour to take the edge off. And I think that there is kind of there's a trend right now that kind of romanticizes wine. Women love to kind of play up all of the benefits of wine, but a lot of people weren't talking about the downside to it. And I lived that. And so I know that also can be a challenge for many people. So I tend to coach a lot on that topic as well.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's start. I want to touch on that, but I want to start before I forget of the beginning. So how did you learn to manage your thoughts and emotions? Like, what were your top few? Like, how did you do it?
Yeah. So I actually when I started coaching women on how to grow their businesses, I had a really strong foundation of kind of, the steps that women needed to take. And I had a strong following in women who wanted to create purpose-driven businesses. And so those businesses had to really lean into your values. So I had a methodology kind of put in place to get them to the end goal. But when it came to managing your thoughts and your emotions, I realized that I was leaning into what my personal life coach was telling me, to have an awareness, heighten your awareness around what it is that you're thinking and feeling. And I found myself starting to coach my clients utilizing the skills that she had taught me. And I was like, I felt a little ill-equipped to be using those techniques within my coaching business. And so I got certified as a life coach and brought that and layered those techniques into what I was already offering. But to answer your question, I have what I call the mind math formula, and it's very black and white. It allows you to be really objective in how your thinking ultimately creates your results. And when I can show people their mind math and really talk about it as something as neutral, as factual as math, so that they don't make it mean that they're broken because they're having those kind of thoughts, or that, they're unworthy because they're feeling some unwanted feeling. It's just mind math. And it's just coming from your primitive brain that's just trying to keep you safe and alive. And so I like to just use this formula to show people what's actually happening, show them that this is the result you're getting, and show them probably the most important point, that they have a choice, that they don't have to keep rinsing and repeating that same think, feel, and react cycle, that they actually can be intentional if they want to create different results for themselves. So we would take this unintentional formula, decide, do we like that result that we're creating for ourselves? And if the answer is no, then we take the exact same circumstance that we're dealing with and we decide, how do we want to intentionally think and or feel about that circumstance? And that's the key. It's that when you're being intentional, the math, the formula changes. When you change one variable within the formula, you definitely get a different result. And it's just math. So nobody has to make meaning that they're a good or a bad person. It's just a choice. And it's the difference between your unintentional thoughts and your intentional thoughts. That's it.
So is that why you have two boards, one for intentional, one for unintentional?
Yes, I love using frameworks. I love being, I love to teach in a lot of different ways. I'm a visual learner. And so I try to kind of go at these concepts in a lot of different ways, but I have found this to be really, really effective, just to show my students that here's the exact same circumstance, and the way and the result that you get, the way it plays out, the experience that you end up having by the way you think, you feel, and you either react or you respond. If you're unintentional, the thinking, the feeling, the acting happens very, very fast. It's very reactive. It's usually kind of steeped in fear. When you're responding, you're usually a lot more fact-based. You strip away the drama. You're strengthening your ability to respond versus react, and you get a different result.
I like that. So you have that pause.
Yes. Okay,
so
that's part of the technique that we teach is, what are the, tools that you can adopt to be more intentional? Because you can't just say, be more intentional. A lot of people are like, okay, well, what does that mean? Right. So a lot of times I'll use this methodology and we'll reverse architect it. So if they decide, just take weight loss for an example, they decide that they want to lose 10 pounds, we can put that into the result line and work our way backwards. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this formula. But what I love about it is that it's so visual and you can see the architecture and how it plays out for you when you're not being intentional, when you're unintentional, and you've actually already had that experience. You can't argue the fact that that's what has happened. So I can get buy-in quite quickly with my students when I can show them. So this is what you're experiencing, right? And you've probably experienced this over and over and over. And it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. It could be weight, it could be a relationship, it could be the pandemic, it can be anything. Your result is driven by how you are thinking and feeling, period.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I love that you did that. What do you feel like? Do you mostly work with women?
Yes. Yeah. Majority of my clients are women. I mean, I do have a small percentage of men. And I will say, to be quite honest, my target audience is women just because I think they relate to me better. But the methodology is applicable to any demographic. I coach a lot of young adults, few kids. So yeah, I mean, if you have a brain, if you have thoughts, if you have feelings, this is applicable.
Cool. So do you find that there is any commonalities, like common thoughts that women have that you see a lot of, like a couple little things that you see, gosh, it's really, I don't want to say popular, but lack of a better term.
Oh yeah. I would say, a lot of the self-defeating thoughts, like, that doesn't apply to me, or a lot of women tend to make meaning of, their inability to lose weight. They make that mean that they are fundamentally broken or morally broken. There's something wrong with them. When in reality, that's a very dramatic thought that has them feeling defeated or unworthy, which then has them showing up in a way that is not serving them. It's keeping them from really seeing the bigger picture. So my program is called Selfmade Mind and Body, because it is definitely a mind and body exercise to lose weight and to keep it off, as it is for pretty much any experience that you want to create for yourself. But specifically, I find that women step on the scale and they see 3 numbers most often. And those 3 numbers are made to mean something very dramatic in their mind. Like they immediately have the thought that, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, it's all of these, self-worth type or a lack thereof type thinking. Now, would they be able to recognize that right out of the gate? Probably not. That is a lot of what I teach them. So they might have a thought like, I'm never going to be able to lose this weight. Right. Or it usually sounds something like that. But if you peel back the layers and you really get to that root thought, it sounds more like I'm unworthy, I'm broken, something like that.
Yeah. It's so sad that we give our power to an inanimate object. Yeah. I can relate. I don't like weighing myself. What I've shifted my focus to is instead of worrying about what the scale weight is, it's more like what the barbell weight is. Like I've focused all my stuff on, it's not about how much I weigh, it's how much weight I can lift. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's cool. So
it's freedom. It gives me more freedom in thought.
Amen. And that's such a great awareness to have. That's part of just kind of slowing your roll and recognizing how your thinking is making you feel. Some women might step on the scale and they're delighted. And then that's great. Then when it comes down to what that equates to, what result they're creating for themselves, they might choose, nothing has gone wrong. And this is lovely. This is exactly the result I want to have every time I step on the scale. Perfect. I like to show you, here's how your thinking is affecting your experience. And then asking the question, is that working for you? A lot of cases it is, and a lot of cases it isn't. And so, stepping on the scale, a lot of people make that mean something that then almost sabotages their efforts. And so we need to heighten the awareness around that so that I love to use that actually kind of in a sneaky sort of way to show them how they feel when they step on that scale and really work with them to get to that root thought and to show them, you could choose to think and feel absolutely anything. And they'll want to argue with me all day long that, oh, no, you don't understand. Those 3 numbers are unique to me. And it's like, oh no, you don't understand, because there's another woman out there that stepped on the scale that saw those same 3 numbers, who I promise is feeling entirely different because she's thinking entirely different. Right? That's it. And so it's all about what you are making it mean. And that story is just a dramatic story meant to keep you alive, keep you safe, avoid pain, and to be really efficient. That's what our primitive brain, the primitive part of our brain, does by default. So nothing has gone wrong. It's just I want to heighten your awareness around what is, from a scientific standpoint, what's actually happening, so that you can decide if you want to change it. And so we also teach the science behind like the prefrontal cortex versus that primitive part of your brain that is meant to keep you alive. It's avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, and it's being efficient. It's grabbing those thoughts that you've thought 1,000,001 times. It's very efficient. It's not going to do the work to come up with new thinking so that you feel better. That's the prefrontal cortex. I like to call that the prodigy part of your brain. So you're dealing with 2 different parts. The primitive runs on default, and you got to have a level of awareness to even be able to catch it. And once you are aware of it, you can start to teach yourself, train yourself to ask what I call high quality questions, like, is that even true? It's often very dramatic thinking, fear-based thoughts that your primitive brain is offering you. So yeah, there's an education there. But like I said, we use frameworks to make it very easy. The solving the mind math is the very first framework, and it's really the foundation of everything that we teach. It's very cyclical. It always starts and stops at solving the mind math. And Selfmade You, we teach 4 basics. So solving the mind math, eating the foods that fuel you, uniquely you, learning to collect data to make your decisions from, so you don't make your decisions from dramatic thoughts, and then fasting, intermittent fasting, so that you can level out your insulin, so that you can balance out your hormones, because often that has a stronghold. Your hormones are at play very often when you're having a hard time losing weight. So SELF are the 4 basics that we teach within Selfmade Mind and Body. And again, it's just another framework that we make sure that people fully understand. It's a much more comprehensive approach to transformation. We're hitting, physically, mentally, emotionally, and metabolically. I don't think anybody can argue that, when you've got a touch point on all of those areas, the transformation is going to be much more sustainable.
It sounds great, honestly. That sounds really, really good. And you keep saying we. Do you have a team?
I do. Yes. Yeah. We have, so my sister is part of my team. She's a clinical psychologist. So we are all about mind and body. So she offers a mental health assessment on the front end of entering into our program, so that you understand where your stress, anxiety, and depression lies. We ask you to, use your prefrontal cortex to do some planning, to make some decisions ahead of time. Well, that's impacted by your stress, anxiety, and depression levels. And so we want to heighten your awareness around that. And then I also have an advisor on staff. So all of our students who come into Selfmade Mind and Body, they have an advisor assigned to them that really helps them navigate the program, kind of troubleshoot maybe some of their own personal circumstances, and then myself as the coach.
Fine. Okay. That's good. I love your approach. And how long have you been doing this?
Selfmade Mind and Body has been offered now for a little over 2 years. Selfmade You has been in existence for a little bit longer than that. But yeah, it's crazy, because I started coaching, like I said, women who wanted to really focus on professional growth. And since the launch of Selfmade Mind and Body, we have seen an explosion of women who want to conquer what they thought was their biggest problem, which was their weight. And it's just fascinating, because they realize that that problem exists at the level of their mind. And once they really understand that, it's like they are off to the races. They start healing relationships. They start skyrocketing in their profession. Their income changes. It's just because they have been held captive by this default thinking for so long. And it doesn't have to be like that any longer. And that's the foundation of what they learn in the program. So it's kind of like they get this little twofer. They come in wanting to lose weight. We definitely teach them exactly how to lose weight. We do give some actions because we understand metabolic health, but what they really run with is this control that they now have over their thoughts and feelings. And that changes everything.
Wow. I love it. Nice ring, by the way. Is that an Aura ring?
Don't you just love Aura? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I've had mine for I got the upgrade when they had it, I think Christmas time or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly don't notice any difference. It's about the same, but yeah, I love it. I love it. Other than when it tells me to slow down, and then I'm like, come on, please.
You're like, keep up is really what you need to be telling. That needs to be the message. I do love the heart rate monitoring, which is kind of the newest addition, like the heart rate when you're actually during the day, not while you're sleeping. I think that's pretty cool. But that's like when I say we teach clients how to collect data to make decisions from. I don't, mandate everybody go out and get an Aura ring, but I want to use that as, an illustration of what it looks like to look at data versus going, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Well, let's look at the data. Let's see how you're actually sleeping, right? Or
yeah,
we teach our clients how to take their blood, how to look at their blood glucose and the reactions that they have to what they're eating or their environment, and understand what how their ketones are responding, or levels of autophagy and all of that kind of stuff. So it's data, so that we do not lean into dramatic thoughts to make our decisions.
how do you measure autophagy?
So autophagy is your blood glucose divided. Now, this is an index that a doctor I think she's out of San Diego, has come up with, and it's as close as you can get. It's not steeped in a research, but this is as close as she thinks that you can get in regards to understanding autophagy and where you might fall. In the ranges, she looks at weight loss, metabolic health or metabolic fitness, and then therapeutic. Those are kind of the three levels. And you can manage your levels or understand maybe where you're at when you take your blood glucose divided by your ketones.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah. So under anything under 20 would be therapeutic. And so she has this is Dr. Annette Bosworth. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She wrote a book at the time that she was helping her mom navigate a cancer diagnosis. And so they used, getting into levels of autophagy that you probably should be under a doctor's care for. I mean, being in that low of a level would require your ketones to be quite high and your blood glucose to be quite low to get under 20. But they are using that as a means of therapy for cancer patients right now. So fascinating research out there on that. Now, my clients, we're looking at like fat burning levels of autophagy or metabolic fitness, going in and out of ketosis, making sure that you're kind of in that fat burning mode, and becoming fat adapted. So that's what we aren't. I want to heighten their awareness around it and what autophagy actually is, kind of the cellular clean out of it and why that's important. We aren't really managing to a certain number, but I find it to be fascinating.
What's your favorite time of day to take your blood measurements?
Well, my favorite time, I think when I first started really collecting data on my own metabolic system, I would say the morning was quite interesting because at the time I was insulin resistant. So it was interesting to be, fasting while I was sleeping, plus a few hours, on either end, and yet still have blood glucose that was above 100. It's like, how can that be? Now, a lot of people understand the dawn effect that happens. Your body is preparing for you to wake up and, you need energy from that. So it is actually, getting energy from the stored glycogen, the stored glucose that's in your muscles and your fat, in your organs, and allowing you to pull from that as a source of energy. So that's the dawn effect, where you would see your blood glucose levels a bit higher in the morning in preparation to get up. It's running off of a circadian rhythm. I always found that to be fascinating. I understood the science behind it, but yet if I was insulin resistant, you would see those numbers stay high even as the day went on. And so I really watched those numbers quite carefully, quite closely early on in my weight loss journey. Now I would say usually like a half an hour after I eat, I wear a continuous glucose monitor so I can see, what the short and long-term effects of me consuming something as well as my environment. So like my daughter will walk into my office and tell me that she overdrafted her bank account and my blood glucose goes through the roof. It's like stress.
Wow.
Yeah, I find that to be fascinating.
Where is the monitor? Is it in your arm?
Yep. It is on, you want to usually place it kind of like in the back, the more fatty area of your arm. Yeah, that's where I subscribe to Levels. I don't know if you're familiar with CGMs at all, but Levels and Nutrisense are the two big CGM brands out there right now. And they are on the forefront. They are doing so much research on the benefits of continuous glucose monitoring. So I follow them quite closely. I talk a lot to my clients specifically about the benefits of continuous glucose monitoring versus those snapshots in time that you can get with the finger prick. But, the continuous glucose monitor is fascinating. It's not necessary to lose weight. I do think that having some sense of your insulin sensitivity is a good idea, and understanding how your body uniquely reacts to carbohydrates. Everybody reacts different. And so if you were just to adopt, mainstream messaging, you may be on a far more restrictive diet than necessary, right? So there's a lot of benefits to understanding how you uniquely respond.
So if you had somebody who you said, okay, like how long would you wear it? Would you wear it like a couple months?
Yeah. I think you can get a pretty strong understanding after 30 to 60 days. So Levels and Nutrisense are actually tech companies. They partner with the manufacturers of the CGMs. So being a tech company, where their value really comes in is on the app that you would have on your phone that translates the data for you. So they're actually like kind of scoring you and allowing you to tag certain times of day so that you can, go back and analyze this data in a more effective way versus just, having the raw data that you have to interpret. So, I think, over 30 to 60 days, you would have a really strong sense of how your body uniquely responds to certain foods and certain beverages. And like I said, environment, your cycle has a lot, of unique responses within your blood glucose and ketones. So
that cycle.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I find that to be pretty fascinating. And I teach that with the finger prick model, like just using the iFora brand. So it's a lot more cost effective. And a lot of people are very scared about putting a CGM onto your arm. It sounds very scary. It's not. But or people aren't very tech savvy. And so they don't want to have to, commit to something like that. So you can very simply do that with the finger prick model as well and get those snapshots. And so, then it would be important to take it first thing in the morning, then take it again before you break your fast. And you're assuming that there's a decent span of time there. And then I would recommend that you would take it again 30 to 60 minutes after you've eaten to see how your body is responding. If it's high, if it's extraordinarily high, you would want to also take it, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours after you've eaten to see what the rebound is, to see how quickly you rebound, to make sure that you're not staying up in those high glycemic ranges for too terribly long.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because I live on a farm and we have like 80 fruit trees. And I normally don't eat a lot of fruit. Like I'll put a little bit of berries in my yogurt, maybe every other day. But when we harvest, I will eat fruit. Like we harvested some apricots the other day. So I had a few apricots. Um, but I just don't eat it all the time, or I don't eat a lot like I used to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I like that idea. Well, I mean, I've been living this way for 6 years, but
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of the metabolic flexibility that you don't have to be strict, 100% of the time.
Right. Well, and I don't think anybody should eliminate fruits from their diet. I think you would only want to eliminate it if they are having a harmful, response, or you're having a harmful reaction, which is probably not the case. If you are, there's probably something else at play, like poor gut health, right? Or toxicity, things like that. But there are so many benefits to fruits, especially organically grown fruits, that you wouldn't want to overlook that. Like you wouldn't just want to say, oh, fruits are going to spike my blood glucose, therefore I'm not going to eat them. No, if you're having a high response and it's staying there, there's probably something else at play. Like I said, it could be a hormone issue. It could be poor gut health. You could have a high heavy metal, high toxicity load. So, and we do like a metabolic assessment so people know that. But we are not somebody, just because fruits are a carbohydrate, we're not a company that says don't eat fruit. When we're saying low carbs, those are refined carbs like sugar and flour. That's what we think people should work towards eliminating. Do they eliminate it altogether? Most people don't. But if you can limit it substantially, you are going to have a much better chance of being metabolically flexible. So
Mhm.
I think I've heard you talk about the fruit trees on other podcasts. I'm like, oh, what I wouldn't give.
Oh, you know what the best is my husband for Mother's Day. I've been wanting berries planted. Like we have strawberries, but I wanted like raspberries and blackberries and all that. And he bought me for Mother's Day 25 berry bushes.
Awesome. That's so awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
so excited because I love my berries.
Yeah. Yeah. I do too. I would say probably every other night I have berries with a little bit of heavy whipping cream over the top. And that's like my absolute favorite dessert. I absolutely love it. So,
Okay, I have something even better.
okay.
So Wheat Belly Doctor has a new book on gut health, and that's what I'm drinking right now. I make it into iced tea, but it's clove and cinnamon, green tea, and then I just dilute it and make it into like an iced tea, but it's really good for gut health. And I also make his yogurt. It's this L. Reuteri yogurt. And then from, oh gosh, what is the other doctor? There's another doctor it's in his gut health book, who has another probiotic pill that you add in for weight loss. You might want to do this, check this out for your clients.
Yeah.
What is the Dr. Mercola? He makes a probiotic that you can add. So now I use the L. Reuteri probiotic as well as this new one. And I have a half a cup of this special yogurt. And I add, because I do CrossFit, so my big goal is to increase my protein. So I add a scoop. Well, first I take a cup of the yogurt, split it in half, add a tablespoon of chia to each, stir it up and let it coagulate. Then when I want to eat it, I add a scoop of protein powder. And then I'll add, I don't know, strawberries or raspberries or something like that. And a teeny bit of almond milk just to give it some, consistency because it gets too firm.
Right.
But oh my gosh.
That sounds delicious.
And you make it with half and half. I buy either grass-fed. Sometimes they don't have it at my store, but I always buy either organic or grass-fed half and half. And it's just a half a cup, but it is really good for your gut health.
Yeah. 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 That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, if you are insulin resistant, I mean, that is something that you have to understand. It is your gut health has everything to do with your metabolic function. And so a lot of people that come in to our program, at least, they've been eating the standard American diet, like 5 meals a day, high in refined carbs. And so they have a lot of stored glycogen. They have months, if not years, of stored glycogen. So it's going to take a while for that to deplete. But there's just as big of a percentage of people that have very poor gut health. And so we help them with like the probiotics, fermented vegetables, prebiotics, better understanding what does it look like to balance out their gut health at the same time that they are, eliminating the refined sugars and flours, increasing the good fats, and getting in a moderate amount of protein.
And so many people are unfamiliar with those terms, because even we had a barbecue last weekend for Father's Day, and my sister-in-law was here and she ate a bunch of meat, and she's Asian, and she's like, it tasted so good, but she's like, oh, I hope my stomach doesn't hurt. I said, here, take a couple enzymes. She's like, well, what are those? And she's like, I don't want them to upset my stomach. And so I had to completely explain what an enzyme was.
Yeah.
She just did not even know.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I just think people don't know what they don't know. So
right. And I would say it's probably because, we are a very reactive society. So if you don't have to know anything like that, if you haven't come up against any issues and you haven't, leaned into educating yourself, you wouldn't know. And a lot, so I would say that. And then we tend to be a society that's a little bit on the lazy side. We just listen to the messaging that's out there, not questioning the, where the research is coming from, if there is any research that substantiates it. So much of our messaging is coming from, pharmaceuticals, Food and Drug Administration, big pharma, big food brands, right? And it's like they're doing that for a reason. There is a lot of sales on the line. And so if we only listen to those people who say you should be eating 5 times a day and cereal should be the first meal of the day, right, to start your metabolism revving up, it's like, and we don't question that. And then we finally, we wake up 30 years later and we're like, why are we overweight? And why am I insulin resistant? And, and we have a whole slew of other issues, it's because we did question that. And so, I would say, knowledge is power. I think that can sound a little cliche, but I would encourage people to question the messaging. I talk a lot about the myths that are out there. And I just think it's important to, make up your own mind. If you've been doing something for a long time and it's not getting you the results that you want, I would encourage you to start questioning what it is that you believe that has you feeling compelled to keep doing what it is that you're doing. It's understanding why it is that you're getting those, experiences, those results, and always reminding yourself that you have a choice, that you can do different.
Yeah, for sure. And I love, you just reminded me of a quote: if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got.
Right. Exactly.
So what words of wisdom would you like to leave the audience with, Tracy? By the way, you're a doll and I've absolutely enjoyed this conversation.
Oh.
I think that if you lived by me, we would hang out, because you seem to be just, I don't know, in alignment.
Yeah.
So
I was
fun.
super excited when I was asked to be on your podcast, and then I totally started stalking you. And the very first podcast I listened to, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love her.
Well, not everybody does. I had somebody said, yeah, I decided I'm not going to come on your show. I'm like, okay, fine.
Oh,
I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't care to be, because, everybody resonates with a different frequency. And if you're not there, then that's okay. But we can't possibly please everyone.
Right.
So
Amen.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So
Parting words, I would say, understand that the messaging that you've brought forward throughout your whole life was received directly and indirectly. And we have created beliefs from that messaging, from those thoughts. And it's those beliefs that have us feeling something like either motivated to change or compelled just to stay the same. And those feelings are what has us creating our results from. So if you are somebody who is like sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, you are not broken. There is not anything morally wrong with you. It is just that you haven't questioned or you haven't yet been taught how to question or how to manage the emotions, generate new emotions so that you show up in an organic way doing different. So many people think that, to get a different result, you have to dive into massive action. Well, I don't know about you, but that feels very daunting to me. The action to get new results actually happens organically. You don't have to try to show up differently if you manage your thoughts and your emotions. That is so key to understanding how to create sustainable change. Because I know better than anybody how daunting massive action, like, engaging in a new workout routine and having a new diet program, that's how that sounds. It doesn't compel me to, jump on board. It instead makes me kind of retract and be like, yeah, that's never worked for me. Well, the reason why is because you're operating from feelings that are unmotivating. These are feelings that are keeping you from organically, by default, going into action. You shouldn't have to try to force the action. If you're managing your thoughts and your emotions, the actions happen organically. It does not feel like you're operating against your will. So if you're feeling broken, if you're feeling stuck, I want you just to consider that you are operating, utilizing that primitive brain, and you just haven't been taught how to turn on that prodigy brain. That's it.
I love it. I love it. And where can people find you?
They can go to selfmadeu.com. So it's SELF-MADE, and then it's the letter U.com. We have on there a quiz that you can take, and it will reveal your unique relationship with food. And so it reveals the persona that you have with food. So we have the snacker, the overthinker, the quick fixer, and the romantic. And once you understand your relationship with food that may be keeping you from losing weight or keeping the weight off, then we offer you a 5-day challenge that all starts with solving the mind math. But it speaks very specifically to those 4 personas. And so all of that is free, and you can access it at our website, selfmadeu.com.
Cool. I'm going to take your quiz.
Thank you. I'm so glad.
No, I love that kind of stuff. It sounds good. It's funny because for me personally, I am really focusing, like I mentioned, I do CrossFit and I'm just trying to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I'm trying to eat more. Like I used to intermittent fast very strictly, but now I'm trying to eat more protein. My trainer wants me to eat 130 grams of protein.
Wow.
And it is hard for me to get over 90.
Yeah.
I have my little 4 meals that I have about 90, but any more than that, it's really hard. So I'm learning new things and I'm open to looking at myself so I can grow. I think that we all need to be on a trajectory of growth. Like they say, if you're not growing, you're dying, So anyway, I'm going to check out your website and have some fun over there.
Wonderful. Awesome. I'll look for you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Tracy. You are just such a bright light, and I enjoy what you're doing. I think you're doing great work, and it was so fun talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you so much for listening, you guys. That was super fun. Love that girl. Super adorable. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Please forward it to a friend that you think can benefit from this information. And if you haven't done so already, we appreciate your reviews. The more reviews we have, the more people will actually find the information from these awesome guests that we have on the show. And speaking of guests, if you know anybody who would be a good guest, please feel free to contact me at tracy@highenergygirl.com. Thanks again for listening, and go out and make it a great day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.